Okay, so we're going to start topic 6.1, and this particular section deals primarily with the design of products, and this particular section is with ergonomics. Now, ergonomics is the study of people's efficiency in their working environment. That's the recognized definition of ergonomics. There's a few other terms that you need to be aware of as well when it comes to this sort of stuff, and one is anthropometrics. And anthropometrics is a statistical study of the measurements of the human body. So people who specialize in anthropometrics are the type of people who would design like crash test dummies. They have crash test dummies for average sizes of people. Now, they made a lot of news recently in that they took their standard design of a crash test dummy for use in American automobile testing and they made it fatter. People were making a big thing about that, saying that, you know, is just proof that the American population is getting heavier and heavier. But they just take a look at what averages there are. It's not just weight, but they'll also look at like the distance between ankle and shin to make sure those joints are positioned properly, how far the neck is able to bend forward and backward without suffering any damage. All of those dimensions are used to create these working models of the human body. And then percentile range is a statistical average that's used for designers to come up with designs that meet the actual sizes of people. So for example, clothing has different variations of sizes, different dimensions. You'll get a small t-shirt, a medium t-shirt, a large, extra large, whatever. However, the desk that you're sitting in right now is a little bit different in that there is not any variation of sizes. They've designed the desk to fit the median, which is the 50 percentile range. So we're going to talk about those specifically as we go on. Now, this is particularly important to the HL guys, as you can see. Anthropometrics, that is, design needs to be human-centered. Center around, like, make your designs based on the person, not based on the machine or the system. You want to have people learn to use your system easily, okay? Or you want your design to adapt to the person. Don't force the person to adapt to your design. Designers have access to a lot of data and drawings that are in lots of different databases and books about this sort of stuff. Designers also need to consider how users will interact with products or service, and they need to consider use and misuse. Okay, use and misuse. So they need to be very aware of certain design aspects. For example, recently they came up with within the last, like, I don't know, 5 years or so, they came out with new medicine bottles. Okay, remember the old medicine bottles were like push down and twisted or line up the two things and pop it off for child protection? They came out with new medicine bottles for people with arthritis in their hands or with low hand strength. So they made these bottles a lot easier to open. But one of the aspects of this design, they had to make sure that people were aware this is not good for people to purchase if they have small children in their home who might easily open this. Okay, so designers need to consider those things. Think about the methods of data collection that's used. Okay, and think about how it relates to theory of knowledge here. Do those methods of data collection, when used in design technology, have more in common with human sciences or natural sciences? What do you think? People who are doing research on the human body, are they more like biologists or are they more like... Do you think that's... Well, it's open to interpretation. And then a wide selection of data is published and is regionalized. That's important because sizes of people around the world are different. Leonardo da Vinci was actually one of the first people to study the dimensions of the human body. That's a picture of him right on one of his famous sketches. That sketch is known as the Vitruvian Man. I decided to make the Vitruvian Man a slight bit more modest here for your interpretation. the dimensions of the human body. This drawing actually, if you look at the distances from the core of his body and his arm length, it is the square over the circle to actually show what those dimensions are. Da Vinci really studied the human body and what the lengths and sizes of appendages were, so he could design things accordingly. Ergonomics is multidisciplinary. There's a lot of aspects to ergonomics. There's anthropometrics, which is measurements of the human body, but there's also psychological and physiological factors as well. So think about emotional responses, physical stress limits, and other factors, okay, when coming up with these designs. Okay, stuff needs to be comfortable, it needs to look appealing for people to want to have anything to do with it. Now, there's a range called the 5th to 95th percentile, and that is what I was describing before when I was talking about your clothing. Okay? Clothing is designed in a range of sizes, and they try to make clothing so it can fit everyone from the 5th to the 95th percentile in terms of size. 5th would be very small, 95th would be very large. And they create gradients within that spectrum to allow different sizes. Each designer, each clothing manufacturer, whatever, is a little bit different in how they interpret this, but the database is there, and they call this the 5th to 95th percentile range. There are multiple designs of a product to fit people more comfortably. These desks that you're sitting in are one size fits all. Some clothing, like hats, is one size fits all. What if all clothing was one size fits all?
There'd be a lot of like adjustable, like those like things, lots of ties and stuff.
You guys would be walking around in basically ponchos.
That'd be so nice.
No. The driver's seat of your car is designed to adjust. Okay? Traditionally just forward and backwards, but more advanced ones can go up and down, tip forward, tip back, tip sideways, do a little dance, whatever. I mean, they're pretty complex systems nowadays. There's another design context called the 50th percentile range. That is the one size fits all stuff. That is the desks. Okay? The height of a desk doesn't need to adjust to fit someone typically. Okay? The reason for that is the distance from your actually there might be a lot of variations in people's sizes, but typically certain distances, certain proportions on the human body for adults or anyone over the age of 15 really is pretty consistent. For example, the distance from your seat to your arms, to your shoulders, is usually fairly consistent, torso length. Okay? A lot of people who are taller have longer legs. Their torso doesn't change that much. Also consider sizes of doors and where doorknobs are. Have you ever opened up a door where the doorknob wasn't where you thought it was going to be? It was higher or lower? It can be pretty awkward sometimes. On the other side, there was no doorknob and you were just in a padded room that, okay. Maybe that was you, not me, I don't know. Handle sizes on coffee mugs are pretty much universal. Sizes of dials on the combination locks, those are a standardized size. Layout of typical computer keyboards. Okay, a full-size computer keyboard has very precise dimensions. Okay, laptops shrink that down, but they try to keep those keyboards still usable, so they have to analyze anthropometrics very carefully. Hand sizes, way your fingers can move, all of that stuff needs to go into that design. Now, limitations of using the 50th percentile as a means of designing for the average person, particularly the 50th percentile refers to one particular dimension. So in other words, this desk isn't ever going to be really comfortable for everyone. It's only going to be comfortable or remotely comfortable for someone who is exactly average, which very few people are. People might be average in height, but not necessarily weight, or shoulder width, or foot size, or distance between your waist to your knee. There's a lot of dimensions that need to be considered here. The 50th percentile is a quick way to do this, but a lot of times it's not the best way. Sometimes it is. Counter heights. Do you know how high a counter is?
It's like, wait, no, 4 feet.
Like
4 feet.
a meter, 1.25 meters.
4 feet.
Typical table height that I've found is 34 inches for a table like this desk. I believe it's 34. Let me grab a ruler here. What do we got? We got a yardstick. And this yardstick says that this desk is, oh, I was wrong. The top of the desk is 32 and a half inches. At 32 and a half inches. A counter height is typically going to be closer to about 40 inches. Any higher than that, and you need to be a giant to be able to reach across stuff. Any lower than that, then it's going to be uncomfortable to use and you're going to be bending over it. Okay, so you got to think about this. I actually made a workbench for my basement. I made this bench to my personal measurements. Okay, so it was very comfortable for me to use. I'm a bit taller than the average person. My wife could not use it very easily. She called it the giant workbench. So in order for her to be able to use it, I had to cut it down to standard height. And actually I found out that it's more comfortable for me to use now too, because I've just, over the years of me being this tall, I've become used to dealing with counters the height that they are. Identify specific design contexts where a designer would use percentile ranges for user groups. For example, toys. Toys are designed for certain age ranges of children. There's cognitive abilities, yes, but there's also the physical dimensions of kids. They grow pretty quickly. So toys are typically ranged from 0 to 3 months, 3 to 6, actually 6 to 9, 9 to 12, and then 12 to 18, 18 to 24, and 1T is 2-year-old toddler, 3-year-old toddler, 4-year-old toddler, 5-year-old toddler, etc. Okay, that's where they come up with those designs, and there are specific metrics that measure children that size. Psychological factors, smell, light, sound, taste, texture, and temperature are also important to ergonomics. Some of these really only refer to food products, but a lot of them are considered in all sorts of products. People react differently. Some people might like the smell of burning wood. I'm okay with it. My wife can't stand it. Which is really funny since I got soap that's made out of pine tar. You know what pine tar smells like?
Yeah.
Burning wood. She complains that the shower smells like a campfire every time after I shower. Also, HL, this is also particularly important for the HL students as well, so make sure you pay attention to this part. Human beings are varied. In very complex ways. People don't have the same outlook on psychological factors or designs. So you need to consider the way designs impact individuals. If you do a survey, remember those survey results are specific to that individual. Okay? You might find that one person might say that they want to buy a product that's blue. Maybe that's not the case for the bulk of people. Or a product that's designed one way and not another way. So that's why surveys are important, so you can get a broad spectrum. If you take a survey and only 3 or 4 people respond, it's not going to be very useful to you. If you're making a survey and you're surveying a product that you're designing specifically for the elderly, and the only people you survey are your classmates, that's not going to be very useful for you. So you need to consider all of these aspects.